You are listening to The Joyce Aldrich Show from Toronto, Canada. Paranormal and UFO edition. Yes, we call them UFOs.
Some unknown light, hovering a bit too low tonight. The lightning sheet, lightning with a balloon, or something strange out of a five-side cartoon.
Okay, so that was Chicago with 25 or 6 to 4. And Chicago is important because that's where my guest hails from today. And my goodness, she's a talented and certified remote viewer and instructor. But her talents extend to the world of media as well. She's appeared on the documentary Third Eye Spies and on an episode of Ancient Aliens, one of our favorite topics here on the Joyce Aldrich Show. And she's also the associate producer of the documentary Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. But it doesn't stop there. No. She's a seasoned producer, and she's played a key role in the Art Bell show, Midnight in the Desert. So many of us enjoyed that for so many years. And but she also co-owns Midnight.fm network, and that's a paranormal network. And she serves as a producer of Fade to Black with Jimmy Church. So many of us have heard his wonderful show. And yeah, she's got a lot of hats she's wearing, including being the visionary behind LITM Media Inc., where she assists authors, podcast hosts, and helps them do their jobs even better and help them with their marketing. So I may have to call upon you, Michelle Freed. So nice to have you on the program, Michelle Freed.
Oh gosh, thanks. That's great, and I am so glad to be here. Thank you.
Oh well, it's my pleasure. And let's just go right back in time. Let's go back in time to Art Bell, because that really is a standout for me, because how many nights did I not sleep listening to the Art Bell show, and then onward from there. And actually, we don't get it anymore on CFRB here in Toronto. We used to get that, and it was such a shame, because it's perfect midnight programming. And you did a dazzling job as working on that program. So tell me a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, we would hear a lot from truckers too, and since Art Bell's show, I hear all the time people would say, "Oh my gosh, I'd be driving home late at night because I worked the third shift, and I was so scared." And these are like big, strong men that you wouldn't think would be afraid of anything.
Yeah.
And they're like, "I was scared to death listening to that show, but I loved it," So. Yeah, so it was very interesting. I feel like at this point, getting to book all these amazing people made me. I think I earned my PhD in all things strange.
I
So
would say so. You're you're the paranormal producer. You are the one. You're it. You're it. No, but it's fascinating. A lot of people, like want to hear these things because it's not on mainstream media, and that's why it was great because as we know in the media world, from midnight to 6, you can play just about anything.
mhm, right,
Yeah.
right,
So
yeah,
this was perfect programming. You know.
yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything that stood out? Any guests on those shows that really were standouts for you that you went wow, like can that be, or like how's that possible, or
Yeah, I think, one of the things that, um, I don't know if like I mean, all of them stood out. And I love all science stuff. So
sure,
anything about science and things like that. But one of the things that in general stood out for me was that I felt like Art Bell at the time, because he started like the late 80s and 90s with
right,
Coast to Coast, and then he started Midnight in the Desert. But
yeah,
I think he paved the way for a lot of these shows, um, and making a place because I would get calls all the time from people that felt like they may have been abducted or something like they
mm,
saw a UFO. And they would call and tell me their story,
mm,
as a producer. And I would say, hey, would you like to come on the show? And they're like, no way. People are going to think I'm crazy. In fact,
yeah,
I think I'm crazy. But I think having a platform where you have a safe place for these people to get on the show and talk about their experiences really helps people uh, have have you know
well, it's just
decide. Yeah,
you don't feel you
they
don't feel
want
like you're alone. It's a supportive situation. Yeah.
that. Yeah,
No,
exactly.
well, I felt that because I knew Stanton Friedman personally and Bud Hopkins personally, and and thank goodness I did because it helped me a lot in my my journey as a contactee, because I am one, and the laughter curtain comes down so hard. It
Yeah,
just rings right rings right down, and it's very difficult. You can't talk to anybody about it. But now, because of Art Bell and subsequent programming, it has been a lot. People are listening. And of course, now with the disclosure that's coming around, even though the Pentagon has been just, I don't know where they're coming from right now, left field,
yeah,
after
yeah,
saying there
yeah.
is and then there isn't, that's just some kind of crazy game. It was almost like they jumped out too early and they're going, no, 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 we can't do this yet. We got to jump back. It almost feels like that. But yeah, but people are talking about it in the Senate. So this is very, very important. And
Yeah.
you have, as a remote viewer, you have also helped people who have had these abduction experiences, have you not?
Right. I used so with people, I used a little bit of remote viewing, but also hypnosis. Um,
Hypnotherapy, right? You do that.
Yeah, hypnotherapy. And
Mm-hmm.
um, in 1 year, which was pretty unusual, I had these three clients, and they didn't know each other, and they were in three different places. And what I had one of them was in California, one in Canada,
Right?
and one here in Illinois. And it was a course of a year, so I don't remember the time frame, like maybe like one, like 3 months apart, 6 months apart, and I don't remember. But they were, throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
And they called me up and they said that they wanted to be regressed because they feel like something happened and they wanted to remember.
Yeah, wow.
And it was really interesting because all three of them pretty much told the same story. They felt like they were off planet. They
Mm-hmm.
felt like they were in water and breathing water, like the planet was all water.
That's
And they
amazing.
described like vegetation and plants and creatures and things that they didn't have a vocabulary to describe, and colors that they couldn't even duplicate or describe as
Mm.
well. And I thought it was fascinating that, like, in this year, 3 separate people, all coming for a similar thing, all had a very similar experience. And I wondered if there was something to that. So I don't know if anybody out there has had some kind of memory or experience or something where they were off planet and living and breathing water, and having an experience like this. I would love to hear from them.
Well, that sounds like the ancient alien thing. Where they were talking. I don't know if it was Sirius B or where they came from, but they were aquatic. I understand these beings.
Oh,
Yeah, and
okay.
a lot of the UFOs. I call them UFOs, UAPs, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Go down into the water. So
Oh, right,
why?
the USOs. Yeah,
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 they
for
do
sure.
descend into water and come flying out of it. So why? Why would they do that instead of maybe going into a cavern in a mountain, which they also do? But it's yeah. Who are we to say? We don't know. There's so many different beings. But you see in Babylon or ancient Sumeria, you see the pictures with fish heads and all kinds of things like that, and the idea of mermaids.
Right,
That's another.
right.
There's all kinds of and this, and also you think of the Iliad or the Odyssey, whatever, which the sirens, the who are
Oh, yeah, yeah.
on the rocks. Hell, there's just so many stories, and they're not. It's not all mythology, and that's the thing. What we're dealing with, when we talk about the paranormal, a lot of it is said to be myth. But is it? And where
Right.
there's smoke, there's fire. So that's it. So when you do your remote viewing, what is it exactly? Because I've heard that remote viewing is can be learned by other people, and you do teach people how to remote view. You have several different classes. I know if people go to your site, which is Butterfly Effective Center. That's CENTER.com, because here in Canada we do RE. So in case anyone's listening,
Oh,
that's a Butterfly
yeah.
Effects Center with an ER.com. They can find out about your classes. But what is remote viewing?
Well, yeah, the remote viewing is used in a lot of ways. There's some people that are psychic people, and they call it remote viewing when they just tune into a location and they imagine this place.
Right.
And that is a form of remote viewing. And the kind of remote viewing that I work with and I teach is more a protocol. It's where we follow some phases, and you have to be trained with it. And
Mm-hmm.
it was actually started by the military, and it was called Project Stargate. And
Yes.
so they
With
all learned,
Ingle
or
Swan, was it? Was it Ingle Swan? That's the name that comes to my mind.
yes, Ingo Swan,
Yeah.
Hal Puthoff, and Russell Targ
Okay.
got together, and they kind of put this, kind of formulated it and just turned it into a kind of protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's a lot of military words like protocol.
Yes.
And so they got a team, and they worked with the DOD, all the 3-letter acronyms, the CIA,
Uh-huh.
and they all would work with it. They would project their subconscious to a location and describe. And they were getting a lot of really reliable intel. And over time, when it got declassified in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and these guys retired, they, over this time, they realized that anybody could do it. You just have to learn, and it's just using your intuition or your subconscious, and just learn the method, and anybody can do it. So they went off and started teaching and working on some projects and things like that. And what it looks like, a lot of people ask me, what does it look like?
Yeah.
What it looks like is that you're given a random number, what we call a target number. This number is pretty much kind of it's random, so it's not associated with anything, but It is something that we use to line up the target. So
Okay.
you do not know what the target is. You know nothing about the target.
Mm-hmm.
So all you get is a number.
Okay. Oh, are those like coordinates or?
Yeah, you could call it coordinates or a target number. There's,
Okay.
a lot of people use a lot of words for it, but
Right.
it's a random number, and it could have letters in it. It could be anything.
Okay.
And there is a secret question that there's a viewer and a monitor, or not always a monitor, but there's a viewer and then the project manager. The project manager sets up the whole thing and has a secret question. So for example, say we're looking for a missing person, and we want to know their current location.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have like a little envelope that says, um, sketch and describe so-and-so's current location, or sketch and describe so-and-so's current condition.
Mm.
And they don't see any of that. They just get the number, and then they do what they're trained to do. And they sit down usually at a desk with pen and paper,
Oh.
and basically you're using your body as an antenna, and you're tuning into all your senses and just pretty much reporting what you're what you're you know what you're experiencing.
Yeah, what you're
And
picking
so
up. Yeah.
yeah, you move around the target, you direct yourself, like move 20 feet above and describe, move around. So it would be almost as if you're there,
Amazing.
what you would do when you're there, but we're
Mm-hmm.
doing it from a distance,
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's yeah, and it has these, uh, different phases that you follow through. The one that I teach is actually a more civilian method that came out when it was declassified, and it's called transdimensional systems.
I was really intrigued by the name transdimensional because I thought that's really, really neat.
Right.
Oh,
Well, we're kind of moving remote viewing into the future, because
ah,
a lot of the military is very much sitting at the desk and being so strict with the protocol that this way we're actually getting our butts out of the seats. And,
mm,
I tell them all the time, like, stand up, walk around. What do you experience? What's your impression?
mm.
What's your impression of what's under you, what's above you, and then they just record everything. And it's really fascinating how
Yeah.
involved you get.
Okay. Your voice is cutting out a bit again.
Oh,
There,
okay.
there you go.
All
You're-
right, sorry.
yeah. Yeah, that's different. And I'm thinking of it's almost like being with all the virtual toys that we have, where you can put have that experience, put that whatever the visor on your face, and then you can see things.
Oh,
But this is in a more real way, like it's a real thing.
right. But it doesn't really, the thing that people don't understand is that the information, the way our subconscious works,
Uh-huh.
is that the information comes in bits and pieces. So you don't actually, like in virtual reality, you will see a chair and you'll be able to say, oh, there's a chair over there.
Right.
When you're remote viewing, because you're tapping into the subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
and what we know about the subconscious is that this is the part of our mind that can't really, it doesn't understand language. It understands emotions,
Uh-huh.
and it understands symbols, things like that.
Okay.
So when you're remote viewing, you have to be able to decode without putting your perceptions into it, without your,
Your
it could be
personal yeah,
right.
yeah.
So that's part of the training, is learning how to balance your left brain and your right brain, because the left brain is going to look at for patterns, and it's going to just automatically assume something. or draw a conclusion based on the information. So, for example, I use this example all the time, is if I said, I'm perceiving something that's red, shiny, round, my left brain is going to say, oh, red, shiny, brown, round, oh, an apple.
That's what I was
But
thinking. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, of
But
course.
there are a million things that are red, shiny, and round. And if you're looking for a missing person, and the red, what you're perceiving is actually a red truck that might be near the location of this missing person, here you are sitting explaining or describing a fruit basket when you actually are going to miss out on describing the truck that's near the person.
So you got to
So
put
we
yourself
try-
aside, push yourself aside. How do you do that?
So what we do is our intention is to describe things and not name them.
Okay.
And that's a very, very important part of remote viewing that a lot of the other methods don't kind of focus on. Because, like I said, the left brain wants everything to make sense, to have a nice, cute little bow on it. And, but you can miss really very important information. And so, yeah.
So what kinds of things have you remote viewed that have been, like whether it was a missing person or whatever it was that you're able to talk about? Because there may be some things that are top secret. I don't know what you've done. So, but is there something you can talk about that was actually that became a success story, where you found something worked out, whatever?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so in my class, I'm giving people targets. Like the minute you start the class, you're going to start working on targets. And so it's very cool watching people in the class just line up and get hits on what they're looking at. So some of the things that I've worked on, some projects with NASA, Homeland Security, and then with private detectives. I've also worked on some kind of off, things that you wouldn't expect, but I had professors call me from universities where they were they're researching in antiquities, and they had a gap in the research, and they asked us to do some remote viewing on something. And then another person who's working on the Knights of the Templar, she asked us to take a look at something. And what's really cool about these projects is that if I'm the manager, I know what the target is. But if I'm the viewer, I don't know what the target is. And when you have 3 or 4 people working on a project and they're all lining up and getting information based on the fact that they don't even know what the target is fascinating, because then you know that there's no biases. You can't make up things.
No.
So that's what is so. I love the science, and we've done several experiments to prove this to mainstream people. So we have to kind of set things up the way that they would want to see the proof. And so I do have some papers that are published. And I think it's really important to note that, we do have evidence of these things working. So specifically, one project I can tell you about is when we were looking for a missing person, and I wasn't told who it was or where it was or anything. And the minute I put my pen on paper, I did not feel like the subject had life.
Oh.
So immediately I knew that this person was not alive.
Oh.
And but it was really important to figure out where this person was.
For sure.
And and in this particular case, I knew a little information because I just knew that it was a missing person. So that was all they told me. You're going to do a missing person. Sometimes they'll tell you a little so that you're not wasting your time getting a lot of information that isn't important.
Yeah, and it may be critical to find that person, of course, as soon as possible. So yeah, you need a little bit more. Right.
So they'll do a shortcut, but they won't tell us anything important.
Right.
So all I knew is that it was a missing person.
Mm.
So I didn't sense life, but I knew that we have to figure out where this person is. And so I kind of jumped into this like impression of a male, and I was kind of above looking down, and it seemed like I was getting this like image, which was strange because usually you get bits and pieces, but an image came to me.
Mm.
And I saw the exact position that this male was in.
Right.
And I saw blood on his forehead,
Mm.
a big, huge boulder next to him. And then when I looked kind of out, I saw this like building that looked like a shack. And it was a foresty area, and there was a body of water nearby.
It's a lot of
So
information.
I sketched it all out and I sent it in. And what they did, which is really cool,
Mhm.
is they knew where this person, you know, they knew the area. So they
Right.
pulled out a map and they looked for the things that I identified. A foresty area where there's something like a shack and a body of water and maybe a boulder or something like that.
Right.
So they just kind of looked in all of their area wherever they were, and they were able to triangulate an area.
Huh.
Then they went and they found him by doing that. And what happened was I was a little off. You know, this is
Well,
that whole thing where your left brain. So that boulder was not a boulder; it was actually a boat. So what
Oh.
happened was the shack was a bar. It was a male college student that got drunk and walked down a dirt path in the forest
Mm.
and took out a boat and went on the water. The boat capsized and he died from a head injury.
Sure, but like the boat flips over, hits him in the head, and yeah,
Yeah,
awful.
yeah. So that was like it was sad that, you know, we couldn't save him or whatever, but I felt really good that the family at least had some information about, you know, what happened and where they were,
Gives them
and so that,
closure on it. Sure.
yeah. And then we've done a lot of fun things like Bigfoot and aliens, and we did the 2020 Olympics. Homeland
Oh.
Security wanted us to identify some threats of the 2020 Olympics.
Mm.
So what
How
was
did that
cool?
look?
Well, so again, I had in that case, number one, I didn't even know it was Homeland Security that was hiring us, and I did not know it was the Olympics. So that one I knew zero.
Mm.
And so I just did my thing, and I was getting this location that had a land and water interface, but everything looked like so maybe like a weather thing, or it just looked like piles of debris everywhere. So I wasn't sure if it was like an explosion or a tornado or some storm. It was
Mhm.
just chaos. And that's what I first got. As I kept progressing through the session, it kind of switched, and I was getting this kind of computer virus that kept bugging me, something about a computer virus.
Interesting.
And so I, you know, handed in my thing, and we did it in 2000, I think it was the beginning of 2019 that we did this session. So I
Mhm.
never heard anything about it. And then in 2021, I was in my kitchen washing dishes, and I was thinking, oh yeah, it's I found out it was the Olympics, obviously.
Yeah.
After I turned in my session, I found out it was the Olympics. And so I'm like, oh, I wonder whatever happened with that session. And I started remembering it. And I went, wait a minute. This is where you have your left brain. Okay. Again, this is why we are all not millionaires to being a remote viewer,
No.
because of our left brain. So what happened was I said computer virus.
Right.
It was definitely a virus,
It was
but it was
COVID.
not a computer. Exactly.
Oh my
That was
goodness.
one of the threats to the Olympics, and that's why we didn't have the Olympics in 2020.
There you go.
So my subconscious was trying to communicate with me with the only way it knew how. And it was saying computer virus.
Well, it did.
So,
It was an explosion. It was a debris field, that it just completely discombobulated our society
yeah,
worldwide. Yeah,
uh,
completely
yeah, the
shut
whole
us down.
chaos.
Yeah, chaos.
Yeah,
Chaos,
yeah,
exactly. And you
yeah.
saw that, you see, that's the thing. And they would never have been able to predict that at that time
No,
when you were remote
not at
viewing.
all.
No
No,
way.
no. Yeah. I was just, I didn't think of it. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking about it and I'm like, oh, wow. This is a really perfect example for my students because, it drives the point about, because people do come up, well, if you're so psychic, why aren't you a millionaire?
Well,
Well, because I'm human and I'm
exactly.
led by my left brain. So um, until we can overcome and figure out how to balance that, we will not be 100% accurate. But we do some really good work. And there's another kind of remote viewing where people are using it for a binary target. And because it can be used for binary, a lot of people are using it to wager on sporting events
Oh, and
or
have you
looking at
been
the stock
successful with
market.
that?
Yeah, so they can look at the stock. Does the stock go up? Does the stock go down? Is this team going to win? Is that team going to win? Should
Hmm.
I wear the red dress or should I wear the blue dress? You're actually peeking into the future. So you're doing precognition. You're peeking into the future and you're throwing back information into the past. So it's a pretty cool concept.
It is. Well, I'm looking at your website, of course, and I'm on the remote viewing page, and I see this: the associative remote dreaming experience, a novel approach to predicting future outcomes of sporting events. You've got a whole thing, so people should go there and take a look at that at Butterfly Effects Center with an er.com. That's fascinating. It's also, I mean, yeah. Who asks you for this information? It's almost like, I don't know. It's just really interesting. Of course, to hire you as a remote viewer, that you do that, don't you? If somebody needed, well, obviously you have been hired out of, obviously, by Homeland Security and all these people,
Yeah,
but can
yeah,
Joe Citizen call you and say,
yeah.
I need?
Yeah, we get a lot of people with missing things,
Mm,
a missing wedding ring or a missing paper or a lot of times something missing, a missing pet, things like that.
oh yeah,
And we've also had some really unique projects that we were hired to do. There's a woman who's writing a book
yeah.
about um, a guy in Texas back in the 70s who claims that a UFO crashed on his land and that he buried the dead bodies.
Wow.
And she wants to find them. So we have a whole team that has been working for a few months on trying to locate where this is. And then she's going to go get a team
Hmm.
that they're going to use LIDAR and metal detectors and everything. They're going to go and search for the possibility if there are these aliens that are buried there.
Does the Pentagon
So
know you're
that,
doing this? you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
we were like, oh, we'll do that.
Yeah. Well, no,
So
but have you had any interference in it? Because I mean, the Pentagon is saying yes and then no, and if they
yeah,
know you're doing this, have you had anyone come up to you and say, "Don't do it"? Just out of
no.
curiosity, because there are those people.
Oh yeah, no, we haven't had anything. I have not really had too much experiences like that. I think,
Mm,
back, I've been doing this for 10 years, but in the beginning,
yeah,
I had a couple incidences where the partner I worked with, we trained together,
yeah.
and we didn't know at the time that our target was alien bases on the moon,
Wow,
and he felt like he was getting blocked because he was getting all this information, and then all of a sudden it was like some kind of door came down, and all he saw was black,
interesting.
and
So,
he's like,
yeah.
yeah, So
So,
he was,
okay.
yeah, he was surprised by that. And he's like, wait, I think somebody wouldn't let me go further.
So a remote viewer perhaps can block another remote viewer. Can you sense each other that you're doing these things? Because I know I'm sure the Soviet Union is doing this, Russia, the
Oh, yeah.
States, China, India, whoever. Anybody can do this. Any government can do this. So yeah, the idea of that it's so James Bond. I don't know.
I know, isn't it? It is kind of, you know, when I teach, there is something called remote influencing,
Yeah.
and you could use it. There are people out there that can use it in a negative way.
Yeah.
But I use it, and I understand the value of it, and I use it in a good way because we also have a protocol for helping healing people and things like that. So you can do remote influencing to heal people. I surround myself in the ball of, I guess, goodness, and I
Good.
don't have any intention for any negativity to come in.
Okay.
We're very careful that on certain projects, we definitely have some protection. And we also
Good
will
idea.
ask, like, is this in my highest good to do this session?
Mm.
Um, since I'm always aware of just being in a place of good and positivity and being productive and helpful and service, I don't run into any of these negative things. But you asked about, do we sense people?
Yes.
And I think like how it works is, are you familiar with Monroe Institute?
No, I'm not.
So Robert Monroe, back in the 70s, I think it's in Virginia. I think Virginia. There's a retreat place, and what he did is a binaural beats,
Mm-hmm.
where with Hemisphere, where they can use those beats that you can't really hear in music, and then it synchronizes your brain, and
Oh,
you can have an outer body experience or uh, a whole bunch of things. So this was a really big thing, and they're still alive and kicking now. And we do a lot of training because it helps us, um, when you're remote viewing, get into the theta brainwave, which is where you want to be to do any kind of psychic work.
mm-hmm.
So we use that for a lot of training. Anyway, uh, my point is, so with I started some training here in Chicago,
Yes.
and I went to, like, they have a little satellite group, and I set in it. I think intention is everything. I think it sets where your compass is going to go,
Sure.
where your arrow is going to go.
Yeah.
So I set an intention that I was going to go visit my friend in California. And so I kind of followed the directions. You wear a headset and you're kind of listening uh, to some instructions. It feels like a meditation.
Okay.
And so there was this point where I'm like, oh, wait, wow, this is weird. I'm like visualizing his house, and I'm walking in,
Huh.
and and I see him at some kind of table with a light above, and he's diligently working, maybe typing or I don't know what, just he looks very intense. So I imagine myself pulling his hair and then touching his nose and just being annoying. And and then, I wasn't really taking it seriously, but I'm like, okay, I'm done. So I finished and I kind of giggled to myself. That's, whatever. And then on my way home, I called him. I'm like, hey, what are you doing?
Hmm.
And he's like, oh, I'm just remote viewing. I just finished a session. I'm like, interesting. Okay. So he wasn't typing. He was remote. He was intensely working. Okay, fine. I said, did you notice anything? He goes, I was just really itchy.
Oh no.
And I was like laughing. I'm like, where were you itchy? He goes, like my hand was itchy and my nose and my hair. I'm like, yeah, that was me. I was pulling your hair, and I told him what I
Oh
did.
my.
So he didn't know, like, he didn't know I was coming to visit, and he would have dismissed that totally. because normally a person's not going to call someone and say, "Hey, I just visited you and pulled your hair."
Well, it's
But
a
because
little disconcerting, I would think, like, what?
yeah, but think about how many times in your life where you're sitting there and something is happening to
You
you,
feel like something,
or
yeah,
something.
touches you, or you'd get all of a sudden itchy and you wonder why, or little things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it could be someone visiting you. It could be somebody, a spirit. It could be someone here. I
exactly.
don't know, but we dismiss it all the time, because no one's going to come and say, "Hey, I just visited you."
No.
So it's pretty cool.
Well, my grandmother promised she would come and pull my toe, and she never had. But I want to talk to you about orbs because you know what? My mom was also a contactee. When she was a little girl, she used to have these golden orbs enter her bedroom. What's your experience with orbs?
Well, I have a very interesting. We were at a place called East Eddy Ranch, which is in I think it's Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a place where there's a ton of phenomena happens there. A
Okay.
lot of UFO sightings. I'm not sure if you're familiar with James Gilliland.
Mm,
That's his place.
you'd be surprised what I'm not familiar with.
Oh,
But
okay.
yes, no. Even though I've listened to lots of programs and read
Yeah,
and seen a
I
lot of
know.
stuff, it's like there's so much out there and yeah, no, I didn't. No, I don't.
So he has this land there, and it's facing Mount Adams.
Okay.
And he has just a whole bunch of chairs just sitting out there, outside, so people can do sky watching anytime they want.
Nice.
So when you go at night, there's just so much to see. It's a clear sky. And we always see these weird looking lights on Mount Adams, and it's really strange.
Yeah.
So one day, my friend and I were there, and some random girl or lady comes up to us and she says, "Hey, you guys remote view, don't you?" And we're like, "Yeah." She goes, "I have something I want you to remote view." And we're like,
Mm,
"Okay, don't tell us anything." And
right.
she goes, "Oh, okay." And so then we just did a session. And the things my session came up with, and in remote viewing, you'll get a lot of metaphors too, because you're dealing with your subconscious.
Okay.
So I was having this metaphor of blood cells
Oh.
traveling and floating and moving,
Oh.
but but these cells had a consciousness. And
Yeah.
I perceived that they had no beginning and no end, but they were
Like an
some
entity.
kind, yes,
Yeah.
they were actually a living thing.
Mm.
And so that was, what I got. And so then we showed her the session. She's like, "Wow, that's cool." She goes, "This is what you were remote viewing." And she holds up a picture of herself surrounded by like a million orbs. So
Amazing.
we were remote viewing the orbs. So the information that I got from that is that orbs are entities, and they have no beginning and no end. And they have a consciousness. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's what
So
my mom was saying, that they came into her room to play with her. So that gives you that, yeah, that feel that it's not just a bouncing lights around the room,
right,
that they
right.
actually interacted with her. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because this girl in her picture, she was dancing. She was like
Oh,
spinning around, and they were all around her.
how beautiful.
So yeah, so it was like, she's like, "What are these really orbs?" And I'm like, "Well, according to my data, I'd say yeah."
Hmm. Sure. And the thing is, we're not just flesh and blood. We're here. We're in this third dimension, but we're so much more. We're sort of trapped in a way. Not trapped, but we're in the. We believe. We act like we're trapped. We act like we're imprisoned in this
Right.
third dimension. But in I mean, I have to stop that. As a contactee experiencer, I recall passing through walls.
Oh,
And when
that
you
makes
talk
sense.
about
Yeah,
people who are breathing water and this is not their normal thing, although we breathe water when we're in utero, that's how the baby,
that's true. Yeah,
we're little aquatic beings. So it's not so far fetched. It's science. Like, and you
yeah,
said you love science, and it is science. It's weird science, but it's science, and we need to
yeah, very much.
normalize it more. And I think that's what you're doing with remote viewing, and also you do hypnotic regression as well, do you not? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do.
all of that as well. This is very important for us to contact that part of us, because we're all here on a mission. Our
Right.
soul, we're souls in a body. We have a soul mission, whatever that is. And the thing is, we have to make the most of the time we're here. And I don't know how we're gonna. We need to eat and sleep and have a place to eat, to live, and we can't be, we just can't be floating around. We have to be grounded. But at the same time, how do we balance all of that with not so much a spirit? Whenever you talk about spiritual stuff, people think, oh yeah, well, it's like, it seems like it's almost unattainable. It's always like this nebulous
Yeah.
thing. But when you talk about things like you can teach someone to remote view, that's very important. So to get in touch with that consciousness that we have. And to recognize it when it's happening naturally as well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
but how do we get society to do it? We're so wrapped up in the mundane, in the work a day, and that's normal. That's, you can't blame people for that. That's just going to happen. But how can people like you or like me or like people who are in aware of these things? How can we help the world to
I
become more
feel like,
conscious
yeah,
of?
I feel like with the research that we're doing, um, which is in the language that scientists want to see. So,
Mm-hmm.
it is really hard to come up with measurements and experiments where there is nothing tangible. So
Yeah.
it is hard to do. And, even if you look at something like CERN,
Oh yeah.
they're having that problem now too, because we're getting so deep into our questions that some of these things are intangible. So in a way that we're kind of being parallel. They're calling them science
Mm-hmm.
and then us like wackadoodles or
I
whatever.
know they're
But
looking
the
for the
truth is
God
we're,
particle. What's that? The God particle. That's what they're
well,
looking for, But you know what I'm saying. And actually, with quantum physics and string theory or whatever it is, they're 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 finding a closer and closer connection to that whatever, that
right. So
that that creative force.
right. I think in order for us to make a change, and for people to be more aware, is for them to actually experience it. I find
Yeah.
that when I talk about remote viewing, people, they observe what I say, but it's really hard to internalize it and imagine that they could do it. A lot of people, even in hypnosis, they're like, I can't be hypnotized or I can't do remote viewing.
Uh,
Well, let's do it. And then you can tell me you can't do it. And, hypnosis, we're in hypnosis. Half the people listening to this show are in hypnosis just listening to the show. So hypnosis
we
is
can
a
only hope.
normal body function. We're in hypnosis, in and out of hypnosis all the time. It's really just focused attention. That's
Mm-hmm.
what hypnosis is, if you
Okay.
simplify it. So I think people experiencing things is key.
Mm-hmm.
And just because then I had a class where it was their first session. I had three people, and one was a man.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's anything wrong with a man crying, but
No.
a guy cried, and the two ladies cried because they're like, it works. Oh my God, I did it. Because they
Yeah.
really didn't think they could. So I think having the experience is really, I think, key. And then just, also just being honest about your experience and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. That's how we get out there.
Well, I guess the more and more we go online and put these things out, and people will notice and they'll listen, and also maybe they'll sign up for some of your classes. You already have some starting here for 2024. I see the one started March 16th for transdimensional remote viewing. Then you have hybrid transdimensional. And media apps, and that started January 6th, and then that was for med apps. That's to help remote viewing for healing. Now that's another thing, that sounds very much like Edgar Cayce in some ways. But how confident do you feel? I have to ask this because say, well, what if they get it wrong? But you say you can learn how to identify the physical condition of a subject, including the origin of the issue. That would be amazing. That's like going into the psychic healing realm.
Exactly. That's what we could do. So it's really interesting because you find that people, they'll come in and they're like, can you take a look at my knee? I'm having chronic pain in my knee. When we ask the question,
that would be my left knee you're looking at right now, by the way.
Okay,
thank you.
So usually we'll set the intention. What is the origin of this discomfort?
Yeah.
And we never really know where it's going to take us.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you that the majority of the time it comes from some emotion. So one lady, it ended up being that she was she couldn't get over the death of her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was having trouble moving forward. And so her knee was doing its job in keeping her from moving forward. That's what we were able to determine. And once we kind of brought that to the forefront, she was able to deal with it and confront it. No, that went away. So it's really interesting how this stuff works.
Well, yeah, and that's what the Hay Institute, they talk about the same ideas, geez, I forget her name. Hey, oh my goodness, isn't that awful to forget a person's name? She's so famous. She's so famous. I can't believe I'm just looking up now on but the whole idea that anything we have has probably an emotional or spiritual origin.
Yeah. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's true. Like if you're to be rigid or stiff, if you're all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Now and also you've got another remote viewing class on how to learn to remote view a binary target. So all of these methodologies you're teaching at the Butterfly Effect Center. So people got to go there, Butterfly Effect Center with an ER.com. I have to say that because our Canadian viewers will do an RE. So everything is, that's the little subtle differences between America and Canada, little things.
And effect, so Butterfly Effect is EFFECT.
Yes,
so
we do have
Butterfly.
Not affect,
Right.
yes, effect,
Right.
yes, Butterfly Effect, EFFECTCENTER.com. Yes, that's a good point too, because people say Butterfly Affect instead of effect, of course, Butterfly,
Right,
because if I'm not articulating there. But I know you say when you change your mind, you will change your life, and so expound a little bit more on that as well.
Well, so that's I use that with my kids all the time because I think that you have a thought, a story or a thought in your mind that brings you to a certain emotion, because we're talking about how your emotions and your thoughts are together in your subconscious.
Yeah.
So if you start to change the way you think about something, then what falls behind that is you start to feel differently.
Yeah.
So if you see somebody that is such a horrible person, but then you change the way you think about that person and you get rid of your, like I always say, don't be a bitter fly, be a butterfly.
And that's a good one. Yep.
Yeah. So don't look at them as a butterfly, have compassion for them. And then all of a sudden this bitterness you feel or this hate you feel or any kind of negative feeling you feel towards them is going to change because you're changing the way you think about them. So if you can apply that to all the different things in your life, that you, and the whole thing is that you get to choose what you want to change. You know,
Always, always.
if you're happy walking around saying, I'm so tired, change the way you think. I'm so energetic. Then guess what? You feel energetic. So it just starts with acknowledging how you think about something and then making a choice. What do you desire? What do you desire to feel? Do you want to feel tired?
Yeah.
That's okay too, but at least own it. Own the fact that all right, I'm tired. I'm going to lean into tired. But if you don't want to be tired, you don't have to be. You just choose to be energetic. Or,
Exactly.
if you say I'm so ugly or I'm so bad or I'm so stupid, you just flip the switch and change the way you think, and then your emotions will change about it.
It's very true. Another thing on that, sort of in that same realm, is that, yes, we are all souls, every one of us, and we're all connected. That's
Right.
another, they're not like a holographic universe, we're all connected, all these little splinters of one great big thing, and the thing is that when I find in our society right now, and I always go back to diversity. I like unity rather than diversity, and I keep coming back to that. But we've split off in so many different directions, whether it's gender or whether it's politics or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's all kinds of ways we've splintered off, and we've been so bent on doing that thing, our thing, that we forget that we're souls and that we're connected. And it's not a matter if you're a man or a woman, or whether you are a this political party or that political party, whether you're right, left, or center, wherever you are, you're still a soul. And we've got to, I find that when I look at people as a soul, rather than whatever they profess to be or what I see them as or whatever, it's like what you were talking about before, getting the left brain out of the way, and pushing those perceptions away. And it's much easier to look at the people and to talk to the people as souls rather than as, also respecting who they are. But at the same time, it's so much easier to see a person as a soul. It really is.
Right.
I don't know if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm not making sense, but
yeah, I like that.
yeah, it's just so hard because we're in these physical containers, and it's difficult. But yeah, we're coming up close to the end of the show, and it's been such a pleasure having you on here, Michelle, Michelle Freed. And what do you what tell us more about before we go? I want to know more about Midnight.fm network. Let's talk about that.
So actually I should have taken that out. We're on a hiatus with that.
Okay.
So we're putting that on hold right now. But I'm working on more of my publicity work with LITM Media.
Okay.
And we have helping authors get booked on shows and radio shows and and their social media and speaking at conferences and all sorts of things, get them out in front of people. So yeah, we kind of moved into that direction from now.
I think that's great because you're getting people out there, bringing them to the people rather than bringing the people to them, which is a lot with what we do here on radio and in podcasts. We're hoping the audience will find us somehow, and listen to us. Whereas if you're at an event or somewhere, speaking out in public, it's a lot easier.
Right.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, like I'm going to this symposium for Leslie Mitchell Clark here in Toronto on Saturday. It's going to be great. They're right downtown Toronto. It's going to be fabulous. Yeah. And you have a great roster of people who I'm going to definitely tap into to bring onto the program because
I would love that.
Well, we're just going to roll them on through. These are A-list wonderful people who who have had experiences, and let them. I like people to tell their stories. I think we need room for we need room for that.
Absolutely. And a lot of times when these authors come out with a book,
Yeah.
the publishers, they move on to other projects, and the authors are like, well, what do I do? And so that's when I come in. I come in after the publishers are kind of finished, and then we just keep it going.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of these people do have stories to tell, and I think they help other people
Yes.
get through things for sure. For sure.
No, I completely agree, Michelle, and I'm so glad I had you on today because we're going to. Well, I'm definitely going to be in touch with you a lot, so to bring people on because it was kismet. It was, as we say in Jewish, it was beshert. It was meant to be that we meet and do this together. This is beautiful. So I want to thank. I'm going to go out with a song that I really love, and I bet you really love this song too. It's a song by Kansas. We've come from Chicago. Now we're going to Kansas. And they say, you're not in Kansas. You're not in Kansas anymore. But it's Dust in the Wind. I love this song. Do you like this song, Dust in the Wind?
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Michelle, it was wonderful having you on. So we're just going to, you're going to be on here again because we've got to keep the conversation going, and the story has not ended. It's an ongoing thing. So thank you for coming on, and we're going to go out with Dust in the Wind, and we'll be back again with Michelle Freed and a whole lot of wonderful people who are going to tell their stories here on the Joyce Aldrich Show and all over the place. Because Michelle, you're going to make sure they do.
Yes, ma'am.
You got it. I like that. Yes, ma'am. Well, yes, there you got it. Okay, well, thank you again for coming on the program. So here's Kansas with Dust in the Wind.
Close my eyes, only for a moment, and the moment's gone. All my dreams pass before my eyes, a curiosity, dust in the wind. All they are is dust in the wind. Same old song, just a drop of water in an endless sea. All we do crumbles to the ground, though we refuse to see. Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind.
You are listening to The Joyce Aldrich Show from Toronto, Canada. Paranormal and UFO edition. Yes, we call them UFOs.
Starlight, starbright, first star I see tonight might be Venus or some unknown light, hovering a bit too long tonight. The lightning sheet, lightning with a balloon, or something strange out of a five-star